Hello, everybody. So good to hear everybody live. For giving you updates, right? So, like to tell you where we are at the moment, right? So we wanted to launch on both Kusama and Polkadot by the time we can save data into the data warehouse and we can query data into the data warehouse. Both those things are now officially done. So we are officially on D0, really. We're stable enough to push to the Parachain. What's left, what we also want to do is things around the launch. So some projects, the first set of projects that launched on Kusama had a really big nightmare on awarding contributions, right? People contributed via KSM or via different routes. They really had a nightmare. So what we want to do is really innovate in that space by automating it. So you guys can decide when to claim your feature rewards. So that's where so that's where we are. We want to write a new palette that really automates that stuff to make it seamless, right? So a conservative target for feature is Q1, but I'm quietly confident we can do that before the end of the year, because all that's left is really automating those crowd loan contributions and launching in Westend. So what we decided as a team is to give you, the community, every 3 or 4 days updates on where we are, any potential blockers. It's just standard agile working. If you guys who have worked in IT, you would be familiar with this. It's like the stand-up approach, which is, what did you work on yesterday, what are you working on today, and what you blocked on. We're going to try and do that to add more visibility, really, so you guys see what myself and the devs are working on. The devs are actually here as well in the call, so you're welcome to ask them questions as well. Right, so what I wanted to do today was really demo the stuff that we will, over the next week or two, deploy to Cha-Cha-Cha, deploy to Westend, because we have to go to Westend to go to Kusama, and then that will be the same stuff that will go into Kusama. There will be no further changes for our Parachain functionality. There might be changes on, like I said, automating the crowd loan contribution. Right, so for the demo, I don't know if we can actually share screen. I think we should be able to. Okay, so I have to go into my settings and allow screen share. All right, just a second. Right. I'm just trying to get. I'm trying to get Telegram access to see my screen. Oh, I have to quit and rejoin. So just bear with me. That's okay.
No worries at all. We'll be right here. while Sam is restarting, I think he already did a great intro. We'll be giving the community 2 updates per week where we are at, and we will also make sure to come up with a summary of today's AMA, so all the community members who can join will be able to get the latest updates. Sam, you're in already?
I think so, yeah. I'm just trying to figure out which screen it is now, because I've got far too many polka dot screens on. Let's see. So hopefully you guys can see my screen. Over here, I've got like a blockchain. I've created a little account here. I've given it like around 10 Kylin. Right, so this is just another community member. Me, Sam, I'm a new community member. What I'm going to do is we go into the Explorer. You can see that I've saved some data into, I submitted new data to the data warehouse in block 12. It then gets saved. This is actually just the price feeding of the data warehouse. So then that's the saving of the data. Then any other account, any other of the test accounts can say, look, I want to query data. And I know Sam has saved data called price feeding. He has a table in the data warehouse called price feeding. So I can just do that, right? I then submit the transaction as Charlie, right? And then while that's happening, I go here. And you should be able to see, what I want to show as well is this. You see here, that's the balance of Sam, 8 billion. These are divided by 10 to the 12, right? So it's actually 8.9 Kylin, right? So you should see that Charlie then queried, where are we? Charlie then queried price feeding. It's still there, so still querying it. And you can see that Sam got awarded 0.04 Kylin because someone queried it and it went out of Charlie's account. And then if we go back to the Sam's account, you can see now it's 8.959. It used to be 8.919. You can't really see that because it gets updated in real time. Can you actually see my screen? Right, zoom in?
Yeah, I see perfectly.
So, you know, I could query the same from Eve, again, querying that data from Sam's table. And you should see, hopefully, it's 8959. Boom, I've got 9 Kylin now. So you can then see in the Explorer, the events, you can see that, nope, not that one, that's the relay chain. So if we go here, you can see in the events whenever someone reads from the data warehouse and who got awarded the fees, really. So what this means, right? So again, Sam got awarded for price feeding. What this means is once we launch this to Kusama and on Polkadot, you guys will be able to submit data to the data warehouse and then open it up for all our partners, right? To say, look, me as just another community member, I've already provided the data, and see every time we read from the data warehouse, you see over here we're basically getting the price, and you can see what the block data, the hash. So if you go to block number 26, you'll see that. Oh, so that's 27. You see in red on block 27. If you go about block 26, you'll see that where Sam got awarded fees. But basically, this means that anyone can submit data into the data warehouse and get awarded fees when other people query. So this is enough for us to go to Kusama. The next step will just be a UI around this, which really is not that hard to do. It's literally just the UI calling the data already on the blockchain to like a marketplace. Really, it's the marketplace aspect where people can go in and say, okay, what data is available? What are the tables? When are they last updated? Which account is responsible for them? So you can look at what other tables they're responsible for. And in the same UI, we hope to allow our partners who we're going to be working with when we reach out to Summer to identify which of our Summer partners we want to query us, to submit data requests or table requests for our community to build. Right, so you can build any API and then submit the data for it. Right, so if I want to, if me as Sam wants to submit data, where's Sam's account, and then I submit data via an API, I just put in any URL. So I'll put in let's say .usd, right? So that's our API, but it could be any API. It doesn't matter. Right, this API just returns the. Let's go with .eth, right? Because it's less pairs and it's easier to see. Right, so where were we? So over here, I'm going to submit this data set to the data warehouse, and I'm going to call this .eth. Right, that gets submitted to this test account, and it's registered against my account. Again, I have to spend KYL to submit this data to the data warehouse, so it's more utility of the KYL token. Go back to the Explorer, and you'll see that Sam submitted a new data set called custom ETH, and then it follows the same process. Other members can query data, and then now it's the custom .eth, which is the name of the table. And a UI around this can, instead of people typing this data up, it can be literally just a drop-down list or a filter drop-down list that tells you this is all the tables that are available, and then you submit that data set, you submit that data request, and you again it'll award the fees to whoever provided. So this is actually the MVP, right? So that's what's really exciting about it. This is the MVP, which is why I'm quietly confident we will reach Kusama by the end of the year. At the moment, we have to, once we launch on West End, we'll have to do some form of audit, another audit. So we recently passed an audit with Parity to get accepted to the Substrate Builders program and pass our milestone. We'll have to do another audit to launch on Kusama, but because the last audit was done, a week or two ago, I'm confident we'll pass the next one. There hasn't been like major changes to security since then. So we need to pass an audit again by Parity, launch on West End, and that's it. Submit the crowd loan.
Fantastic. This is really, really cool, Sam. I'm wondering, just kind of as a, I guess, layman's introductory techie here, if I'm understanding this right, the same way you showed the price feeding information of the ETH pairing, is this able to be anything, not even just price feeding, but maybe somebody extracts a bunch of data about an NFT drop or something, and someone structures it, organizes it, and decides if they want to sell it?
Anything that returned by JSON, that's the beauty of Kylin over something like Chainlink, right? This was me, this is Eve querying custom.eth, but it can be any API, right? It can be any API that's returning JSON that you can write. There's loads of tutorials that will show you how to build an API over JSON, and then you will save it into a data warehouse. So our partners will come and say, look, we want weather data, flight information, or whatever. And then someone from the community can build it, save that data feed, and then tell them, look, this is the data, and you define your payload or your spec or how you want the data to be shaped. So you want a JSON build with 6 or 7 fields. Our data consumer, like the partners, will say, we want this data set in this shape. Then the community builds it for them, or we can build it for them. And then whoever, if you build something that is really useful, other people will query that table. And then you get awarded fees. Again, see, Sam got awarded again for custom.eth. This is the table name that I just queried while you were asking Andy. Eve's code. So you should see Eve being, we took away this amount from Eve for querying that table, and part of those fees go to Sam because Sam is the data provider.
Amazing. Well, it sounds like we'll definitely have to make some content talking about the best types of APIs and what kind of opportunities we see. I know we've got a lot of hungry partners.
Yeah, that's a very important aspect. A lot of what we'll be doing after we launch will be the educational content on how to feed data into a data warehouse. So to really help our Oracle scripters, we will probably be building templates as well. So people who want to submit data, they can just literally clone a repo from the Kylin repository or the organization to GitHub, and they're up and running within maybe less than a day. It'll take you less than a day to build an API. It'll probably take you more than a day to define the data that you want to return. But when it comes to actually return it, having the infrastructure to have the API up and running, less than a day. It takes like an hour or two to build an API, especially if you have a template. Then you have to write just a little bit of code that says, I want to get this data set. And then you submit it to data warehouse, and you will continually get rewarded with fees every single time someone queries that data. So you're incentivized to build something that's more useful to more than one person. Like price feeding's one, but it could be anything.
Give a man an API, feed him for a day. Teach a man how to build an API. For a long time.
Written in stone. I love that.
I think it's also, sorry to jump in here, guys, ex nihilo, but I just wanted to, this is Dylan speaking. I just wanted to kind of highlight just what you said earlier, Sam, about, a big narrative for the project has been, and probably will continue to be, how do you guys stack up to Chainlink? And to the extent, and our kind of like answer to this is, well, it's not really a direct comparison. But I think it's still worthy to consider something that you said a bit earlier, which is, regarding JSON, right? And I think just maybe that's something to just like latch onto for any future conversations that we may have with the community about, what can you do with Kylin that you can't do with Chainlink? I think that's worthy to note and hold on to from what I just heard from you. So maybe if we can distill that, or if it's just a sentence, I think it's worthy to consider when we respond to community members on this.
Yeah, so it's a very good point. I think there's a narrative being Oracle equal pricing data, but that's definitely not true. This is really expanding on that to say it's any sort of data. We're more comparable to Graph than we are to Chainlink, to be honest with you. But Graph is, to do this in the Graph protocol is extremely more difficult, far more difficult, and also far more expensive to be paying these fees.
I think it's worthy to consider just doing some teamwork here, Andy, to consider making a bit of a graph on that basis of how we stack up to the Graph if we're comparing to the Graph, like in terms of costliness and ease of use.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if I may dive in on the vision I've heard and seen the most so far is that we're looking at having function to data more so than simply retrieving data. Of course, data retrieval and storage is a fundamental necessary part, but where the value really comes in is the application and the usage of data. That could be anything from somebody who has a game. One of our partners here, they actually have a crypto game, and they've got a ton of various assets in there, and there's currently no real way to determine the relative value of asset A versus asset B. Well, every single time somebody looks that up, if they wanted to be able to have some type of a pipeline, a data pipeline built to analyze this through ETH, oh man, it just wouldn't be sustainable anytime soon. While someone on our side, the creative community members saw this game and liked it a lot, decided to organize and structure the data that's already freely available, and then put that here into the Kylin data warehouse, at which point a simple user interface, think about something like a chain analysis or some type of different crypto analysis site. Every single time somebody searches that query feed goes back into your hands. And that's just one of a million applications of data. So I think when it comes to the main question of what's different between Kylin and our data solutions here versus Chainlink is that Chainlink has really set the stage for how data can be properly brought on chain and secured in a way that can power smart contracts. We've now taken that a different step and made it to where it can actually power full-blown applications while also still validating everything, not just on chain, but through the interoperable ecosystem being built by Polkadot.
That's well said. And I just want to let you guys know I'm going to jump to listening only from now on. Look forward.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being here.
Pleasure.
Now, Sam, we've got a couple of questions coming in from the community. I'd love to blast some of these off to you.
I love it.
Yeah, so I think the first one here is a question about the structure of the data warehouse. Is the warehouse distributed? Is a question that's coming from Big Bad Man Bear Wolf. Hey, Sam, looks like you're muted at the moment.
Is that better? Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yep, loud.
So it's about the data warehouse at the moment is centralized. We're storing it in a Postgres database off chain. However, that's the reason why we're not launching public validators yet as well. And however, we're handling the authenticity of the data with hashing, right? So you see here, every single data request you have will have the block number and the hash associated with it. So you can see this data request was block number 35. You, as a when you query this data, you'll be able to look at inside the data warehouse, and you get a hash to match the hash between what was provided off chain with what was stored on chain. Eventually, probably on reach Polkadot, or it's just soon after, we plug out that off-chain data warehouse as a Postgres DB and move it to IPFS. Because really, what you care about is the authenticity of the data on the blockchain, not necessarily where the data itself is stored, as long as it's distributed. We validate that the data being returned by off-chain storage is correct with the hash value being stored inside the blockchain or on the chain.
Absolutely. It sounds like if we look at it, something where the data should be able to be stored anywhere, because over the time of the future, there's going to be anybody that might have their own private database that they'd like to be able to monetize a portion of by allowing people to query, all the way up to individual applications that are, who knows what type of setup they have. But from our point, if I'm understanding it, it's if somebody's got an API connection, then they're able to interact with Kylin. And in this case here, from I guess what our function is we validate that the data is accurate as they say. And that's where the blockchain hash comes from. Am I understanding that right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's correct. The hash validates that you're returning data that was passed over to what was originally stored on the blockchain. So that validates that, wherever it's stored, that's what was actually pushed to the blockchain.
Yeah, and then it looks like there's a follow-up question coming from Siri Samurai, kind of comparing, is this done cheaper, easier, faster? Like if you had to kind of compare this to the graph, how would you describe the difference of what we're doing versus how it would operate over there?
Well, we're based on Polkadot, so the fees are ridiculously cheaper than they are on P. That's one. And two, I just think the barrier of entry is so much lower than learning how subgraphs work on the graph network. Because if you think about trying to learn the graph-specific way of building subgraphs, which provides the data, versus how very easily writing up your own API. There are thousands upon thousands of tutorials of how to build an API, and there is probably far less information on how to do that on Ethereum. There might be some info, but it's just definitely not beginner friendly. And we need something that's beginner friendly because that's what drives adoption. If something's easier to use, the less barrier of entry, the more likely people will use it, right? So those are to me the main two things that differentiates us from anything else. And there is nothing like that in the ecosystem, as far as I'm aware, that's this easy and simple to use. If you want to be a data provider, you can be one within less than a day. I don't know if there's anything out there that's this simple.
Yeah, well, it sounds like it's not only language agnostic, because whether someone's building an API on Python, Java, or C++, it doesn't matter. Yeah, we're able to bring in those.
Whatever language you want.
So it sounds
that's what I meant by thousands upon thousands of tutorials, because you can pick whatever language you want, and you can be a data provider. I don't think there's anything like that in that space in the blockchain.
Well, I think that sounds like a great headline, that you can build on any language that you want, because this alone, besides the exponentially cheaper prices as a result of being on Polkadot, and with the ease of use, with the fact that it takes less than a day, man, it sounds like mass adoption is quickly incoming.
Yeah, definitely, that's the plan.
So then, going through these list of questions here, looks like we got just a few more coming in. Mr. Miyagi, he's kind of catching up, wanted to look at can partners and other projects put in a request to the marketplace? And go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, so the marketplace isn't quite ready yet. We want to build the UI on top of that. This part, saving data and querying data, was essential for the marketplace. The marketplace, to be clear, is far simpler. It's a far simpler app. It's a V app, really. And once you have the underground foundation to allow the V app to communicate, then it becomes really easy. So as soon as we launch, we will have the marketplace. We will focus on building the marketplace. So partners can submit requests really for the data they want in whatever shape they want.
You know, Sam, this is making me kind of see an image of the Polkadot circle with all the various Parachain nodes connected. It appears as if all the partners, as more partners are onboarded through the Kylin network, they can then not only query from the data warehouse, but they can also interact with each other, all of which is being done through Kylin token and Feature token. That's an aspect I had actually never even looked at, because that's an exponential growth on top of the general adoption of bringing on different partners. I am glad we've done this AMA with you guys. I'm looking at the chat, see if there's any other questions, and you know what, I see we've got a couple dozen people here on the chat. Feel free to hop in. We'd love to be able to speak with y'all, and if not, I've got a couple other questions to knock out, but just want to open up the floor for a moment for the community.
Just want to add, if any of you guys don't feel comfortable speaking in the chat, just throw your questions in the channel, and Andy will forward them to the team.
Absolutely. So then,
I think, Andy, if there aren't any questions, sorry, Andy. Say it again.
No, quite all right. I was just going to be going through the next questions I had here on the list from the ambassador team. So, Sam, and this is something where, of course, I understand it's obviously we don't have a crystal ball and you can't exactly give the entire future. But when it comes down to which auction we may be looking at narrowing, how is it that you're currently calculating or estimating which auction is we're going to participate in, so that way, from a marketing perspective, we make sure to be prepared?
Yeah, I think we're looking at potentially number 13 or 14, depending on the audit success, right? Uh, the the answer to that will be clear day by day as we share progress of where we are with the contribution automation. So we might there's a risk we might miss this set of options if we can't get the automation done. We do not want to go with the manual process of looking at all the contributions that were done in the relay chain and then sending out. Some partners in Kusama did that, right? Some chains in Kusama did that, but it's just a nightmare, and everyone it's a bad experience for everyone, and we're better than this. So we'd rather launch a something that's seamless, where you can easily claim your tokens as a contributor, than it is to expect manual someone to sit next to an Excel sheet and send out contributions. I don't think that's a clean way, especially not when we're being on the cutting edge of technology. That to me is not an answer. So I'm hoping we launch before the end of the year, but if it's at risk, we will be sharing the visibility, so the community will know way beforehand if we can't take it.
And something to add on there is I have noticed a little bit of concern on what happens if we quote unquote miss an auction. And I guess one thing I'd love to be able to reiterate here in this call is that we are one of the few substrate builder program approved projects within the entire ecosystem. There's less than 24 that are at the type of product that we are as an infrastructure in this position, while there's 100 parachains available. So when we're looking at auctions, it's something where we can consider how many millions of how many much larger amount of Kusama was required for the initial auction rounds versus now it's a fraction of the price. So it's not a matter of if Kylin will get an auction or if Pichu will get an auction approved. It's more so a matter of when, which is, from what I'm understanding, Sam, contingent mostly upon these audits to make sure that everything is ready for a smooth process, so we don't have some dude sitting behind an Excel spreadsheet manually sending out rewards. Now, Sam, I think that you're muted here, but I'm going to go on to the next question.
Sorry, but you hit the nail on the head there. Like we are confident in our ability purely because of what we've demonstrated to both the community and to parity. Like there's code there works. I seem to recall, 4 or 5 months ago, we used to get a lot of fun with saying that there is nothing on GitHub and you guys aren't building anything. Well, it might seem like years ago, but this was like only 2-3 months ago. So I think we've already demonstrated not only that we're actually working on things and we're shipping features, but we also are getting recognition from Parity, and there's no greater recognition from any organization than Parity, because we're the ones that are building Polkadot, and we don't really give away substrate builders program entrance to just any project. They have to demonstrate that they're actually building stuff and are continually delivering, not just delivered once.
Makes a whole lot of sense. We've got a couple questions coming in. I can knock out a few of these to allow us to stay on track here. Thank you everybody for being here, by the way. I've noticed that we now have more than 30 people live, which is awesome, seeing those numbers going up as we continue. This is a question that I don't think is very simple at all. Mr. Kylin here, asking essentially from a high level, what problem does Kylin solve? The concept of a decentralized data warehouse, what exactly does that mean? And if it's decentralized, then where is the data stored? And Kylin, the way that I would respond to that is that the concept of decentralization is more so meaning that there's not one individual group that controls it. if I set up a Google instance, that is between Google and I, and there is no other party. If Google decides they want to lock me out, they can, and then there's no other alternatives available to me. Which, if I'm saving selfies, that's not that big of a deal. But if I'm, operating a $10 million a year SaaS product, that could be devastating if for whatever reason I have the risk of a centralized controlled system. In this case here, the data is actually, at the moment, we're in the intermediary stages. It is being operated from a database that we control. And once we go live, just like any other project in the MVP stage, it's released to the public, at which point anybody who has data stored in a place will be able to connect it to Kylin using an API. Now, when it comes to a follow-up question in the community, how is this data validated? I'd say really, from a high level, and this is kind of my layman's understanding of it, is decentralization is about supply, demand, and survival of the fittest. It is up to the data provider to be able to showcase enough confidence in the process that they have of where the data is coming from to encourage a partner to purchase. No different if someone is buying a car, they're probably going to want to test drive it and take a look to see what's inside of there. Here, a data provider is going to be incentivized to be transparent on where the data is from, how it's being distributed, and then by having a network of data engineers or data nerds like myself that go in and make sure that this data is accurate, if any funny business is found, they're not going to last long, because we'll be able to, showcase that there's better options available. Sam, I'd love your take on how we validate data as we move forward and build this out further deeper.
So validation of the data is two aspects. One is how do we ensure that the data originally inserted was correct, and how do we ensure that it remains correct, right? So you tackle that remains correct with the hashing, right? We compare the hash with any future request to the data to ensure that this was definitely what was put into the data warehouse. With respect to if you're providing data originally that's incorrect, well, we're looking at ways of solving it, and part of what we agreed so far, which may change as we evolve, but what we agreed so far is really to validate the data providers themselves. So in the UI, the marketplace, you might have a tag that says verified, and to get verified, you have to basically submit your code what you're using to get data for the Kylin network team to validate that it's always returning the correct data. Now, that verified tag might allow you to ask for premium fees, right? The reason you pay me more is because my data has been validated. So you have like a validated tag. But it doesn't necessarily stop you pushing in false requests 6 months later after you've been verified. And that's where you can be like, that's when you would be raise a dispute. Like, for example, Andy gave me incorrect data even though they were verified, and you'd raise a dispute, and then you would essentially be demoted. And by demoted, I mean not verified, and you would lose further fees, right? You will have in the marketplace. A lot of these information will probably be clear once you see the UI, but you might be able to see that this person has a lot of disputes against their name. Just like eBay would say, this person has a lot of bad feedback. So you'd easily be able to see that this person seems trustworthy or this person does not. So I'm not querying them. And you, as a data provider, you get a lot of bad disputes, and that's it. You've ruined your reputation in this trustless network, and people aren't going to query you. So you're incentivized to ensure you're providing correct data.
Absolutely. I mean, it's something that by having the flow of income stop if a data provider brings bad data is about as bad as you can get, because there's actually a precedence of what we're describing. The ASTA network, formerly Plasm, they're building essentially something of a application marketplace of the Polkadot ecosystem. And in order, as of now, to be able to be in here, similar to Polkadot with Parachains, they're ensuring that each project is going through their audit system. And what this does is it makes it to where quality is assured and validated by multiple parties on an ongoing basis. So that way, during these early initial stages, that is both the most exciting and profitable time to be a part of the project, and also the time when, like what Kusama says, it's the time to expect chaos. And the way we see this being mitigated from Polkadot to our other Parachain projects and with ourselves is that we work together as a community. And much like how the eyes of the 13,000 people in Telegram don't miss very much, it becomes even more so when you're talking to a bunch of data engineers who are the guys creating the automation infrastructures that powers the most advanced technology of the web today. It's very difficult. It's a very difficult place to allow funny business. Here, one moment. I'm going to pull up the next questions here, and if anybody would like to just reach out and connect and say something, now's a great time. All right, so one of the other questions that's come up is, what do we need to do to be eligible for the Pichu drop? And this is something that's probably great for us to settle here, because it's really actually, we want to make this as simple and user-friendly as possible, just like every aspect of this system that we're building. And from what we're seeing is that the best way to do that is, so long as Kylin tokens are being held in a non-custodial wallet, meaning it's not on an exchange, it's something that, it's a wallet that you control, then we'll be able to validate that, that the amount of Pichu to send out. With the caveat, though, that seed investors and the pre-sale investors of the Kylin token, those wallets are not validated for this. And Sam can go, and of course we need to be sure to make all the details worked out. We don't want people gaming the system. At the same time, though, Sam, what is your take on the distribution process for Pichu and what requirements would be needed of the community?
Yeah. So really, like you said, we want it as simple as possible. I think if you're holding your Kylin, your MetaMask wallet or trust directory, then you're good. Those of you who are holding it in an exchange, we are most likely not going to support Gate because they listed us not really our acceptance or agreement. They were unofficial transaction. So I don't know if we want to really work with them. Those of you who are on Thor, for example, we will, after launch, we need to go speak to Thor and understand, if we reward them, are they able to allocate the rewards to the correct account? So there are conversations to be had with Thorchain, for example, to understand, can you support them or not? And if not, then we will give the community at the very least, a month's notice to say, withdraw your funds from here because we will not be supporting these guys. So yeah, we'll give you plenty of notice. But the priority now is to get us on Kusama as soon as possible, because the sooner we get on Kusama, the more likely we can hit Polkadot even within Q1. Because I don't see us staying Kusama for a lot of months before we launch on Polkadot. There's just no incentive there. But so the priority right now for the team is to get everything ready for launch. Once we launch, that's when we will be tackling the rewards for holders. And the rewards from holders, they start as soon as the snapshot happens. And the snapshot, when we have the snapshot, we'll also be giving a notice. I don't think we're going to give a month's notice for snapshot. Probably going to be about a week. But I expect the snapshot to happen relatively very, very close to launch, and we will let you know exactly when it happens.
Awesome. And hey, we're about 10 minutes on coming up to an hour, so I'm going to knock out the rest of these questions. For everybody listening, thank you so much for being here. Please drop any questions, thoughts, comments, questions, concerns, emotional outbursts even. Now's the time for us to connect as a community. Sam, I love this next question coming from Tech Sagar about taking a look at the one pager, he's interested to hear your take on the off-chain work or the OCW technology from Polkadot and how we can leverage that in order to create really a premium product when it comes to data. What is your take on how off-chain workers go?
Well, we are using the OCW. That's what was used to call the APIs. So when someone provides an API request, we use on-chain worker to then call that particular API and then save that data to the data warehouse. So it's really integral to what we're doing. It's not a matter of how we can use it. We are very much using it.
That's awesome. So it's a big part of the secret sauce to where if people are looking at the difference from a chain link palette or perhaps a subgraph, here it's something that we're natively using Polkadot's off-chain workers to be able to connect with every API. Is that right? Hey, Sam, I think you're muted. All right, well, it looks like these last two questions I've got so far, and please everybody drop your questions in, is questions about the website and when is that going to be up and running? Oh, Sam, I think I hear you again. Say something.
The website's all your domain.
All right, absolutely. So yeah, the website is super excited to be able to get this out here. What we've been doing is we started a little less than 2 weeks ago on the actual build process and are now migrating it from WordPress into Webflow. As far as the current condition, we have our version 1 currently ready, and pretty soon we'll be sharing that with the ambassadors, where as a team, we're going to be refining it, putting together the stages, and I would expect we'd likely come to consensus on an initial launch, likely sometime next week. Now, we're doing something a little bit special with this website where, as opposed to making a monolithic billboard that someone pops out once and then we sit on it for the next 6 months, it's really much more like a, more like a profile, something that we can update and add interactivity to and make it to where on a weekly basis, any kind of changes, any of the announcements, and ideally we're going to have it to where the focus is really on the community. You know, of course, it's to build these dozens and eventually it's going to scale up to hundreds of oracles. It's going to be a community effort, and the website is meant to be the central hub of where that can happen. So we're looking at some type of a launch likely happening this next week, subject to the ambassador team. And then we're looking at having a pretty deep community involvement throughout the month of November to be able to take people's ideas and suggestions of features and cool things that can be added to it. Now this question's a fun one. Let's talk about money, Sam. What is your take on the bull run and where Kylin stands as far as our progress here? Oh, looks like it cut out here. There we go. I heard something.
I'm not really a trader. So I'm not the best answer when the bull run may or may not finish. So really take everything I say with a pinch of salt. I am an engineer at heart. I build stuff. I don't trade crypto. But realistically speaking, December has been a really great month and March hasn't. So conservatively, I think maybe March will be a bad month. Whether it will be the end of the bull run, I don't know. And yeah, I don't like giving an answer to that question because I just don't know. I don't know the answer. So my conservative estimate that maybe March will be a bad month, whether or not it will be the end of the bull run, yeah, I don't really have an answer there.
And you know, I would echo the response. It's something where, in order to be responsible, the fact is we can only make decisions on what we can control and what the collective crypto market at large does. I mean, I don't think anybody in the middle of May was expecting everything to drop more than 50%. And, you know, no one knows what's going to happen tomorrow. There's multiple different, let's just say, contingent scenarios that are could likely and will likely affect the entire industry. It's not a matter of if, but when. At the same point that there's also a heck of a lot of bullish things happening. To be frank, and this is just kind of based on the conversations I've seen internally as a team, is that we don't really take our time making random guesses about what might happen, when the fact is that we understand that there are thousands of crypto projects right now that are essentially walking around a forest with a blindfold on, because this data is, for the most part, unstructured across these different networks. And we understand that there's a lot of value in data. If one was to simply look at the market cap of any of the modern technology companies, there's a lot of opportunity available. So when we look at what does the future hold, while we can't say if market's going to go up, market's going to go down in a month, a quarter, a year, what we can say is that the more data that's being processed, the more applications that are being powered by Kylin services, and the more oracles and APIs that begin to be connected in this decentralized marketplace that we're putting together, it's very likely to create an exponential growth, similar to how, well, I mean, we can look at Ethereum with their 5,000 to 6,000 plus applications already in a matter of 4 years. Take a look at something like Chainlink, which is connecting data back and forth. Compare that to something like Graph and Ocean, where they have a marketplace of various data services. And well, imagine if you just add up Ethereum and Binance and Cardano and all the various networks that will eventually be tied to the Parachain as engineers put things together. I would just share personally that while it can be fun to consider what's going to happen in the future, when we look at things in the long term, it makes it to where, regardless of a bear market or bull market, there's a lot of opportunity available. And we do see it as this industry, and by this industry I mean data in general, many people don't understand yet. And if you're here, especially if you're on this call listening or watching the recording, you're very, very early, and we believe that there's going to be quite a bit of upside available. Now we are running right onto the hour-long mark of Bull Sand. I'd love to hear your thoughts before we get going. I know there's a couple of last questions. Why don't we do a lightning round here, Bull Sandy? If you could drop off the last questions, and Sam and I can knock them out real quick before we end.
Yeah, sure. And I want to say thank you for hosting, Andy. I really enjoyed this.
Absolutely. The pleasure is mine, my friend.
I have a question that we're talking about the Kusama crowd loans. RGA wants to know about the Polkadot crowd loans. How are we acquiring the right amount of DOT?
So we've got the dot allocation that we have has not been changed, and it's not really being added to the contribution to KSF. So we've got about 200 to 300,000 dots just guaranteed from our agreements, and we think we can safely raise about 500 to 600 of that from the community. So yeah, quietly confident we can launch, but whether or not we launch it in the immediate first set of loans that's launching in November, I'm not sure, because that's really depends on how much the options cost, right? So if it costs 2 million, then no. If it costs something like 500 to 600,000 dollars, then maybe.
Yeah, and
perfect. Understand. And can I ask a question for myself? Do we have any estimates about how many Kusama we need to raise for ourselves? Because now we started the continuous auction.
Yeah, we got an estimate. Like, I think the last auctions were won with just under 200,000, and I think that's the cap we're raising. But looking at what's currently running, I think it's just under 50 or 60K. So yeah, I'm fairly confident we can get Kusama. So it's going to be much more affordable than the Polkadot as well.
Yeah, I agree, because that's what I have been looking for. It seems like Kusama at the moment is, you don't need to acquire as much Kusama as the first couple of auctions. And I think when we start continuous auctions, the number might drop even more. So that's only in our advantage. But it's just me speculating though, so
Yeah, well, I think that just your speculations are on point. There's clearly it costs less and less Kusama for each parachain, and DOT will likely have a similar pattern. It doesn't seem likely that the future auctions of DOT will cost more as time progresses. And if there is so much bullish activity within the DOT ecosystem, I've got a feeling that being the data layer behind much of what's happening, we're likely going to be okay in terms of adoption. And one other point I would add that specifically on the Polkadot auction, because it inevitably does have to come after Kusama, so that way we can really stress test and prove the capacity of our network to the parity team. At that stage, that there is a lot of marketing that's happening, guys. It's right now everything we're building up for in a marketing standpoint is not so much for today. It's to make it to where we can go from 50 partners to, well, hundreds and then thousands of partners, while also empowering the developers in this community to be able to find ways to monetize their talents by connecting interesting and creative APIs to our network and our marketplace. And it's something where that means that anything we're talking about today is purely based upon, pre-launch and pre-awareness phase of what's really happening here at Kylin. So when we're looking towards the future, we see that auctions are going to be ending up requiring less and less commitment to putting in, while we're looking at having more and more awareness and interaction with the ecosystem. To us, that adds up to it's going to be fine, especially being that there is an oversupply of these positions, and we're already in the Substrate Builders program, which gives us direct access to the parity team and lots of knowledge on how to build a quality product with that. Now, great question. It looks like we are at the hour, guys. Everybody, thank you so much for being here. We're going to be doing more of these. So if there's additional questions, please don't fret, and there will be a recording that will be released. I can't promise exactly when that's going to be. It's going to be here within the next couple of days for sure. And then we want to be able to start having more focus chats, something that we can bring on, and not just different members of our team, but we would actually love to begin also showcasing our Oracle breakdowns, kind of like the videos we've been making, to go have a chance to go even deeper together as a community. So if there's any ideas about what you guys would like to hear, what you'd be interested to see, right now we're open to everything. And the best way to get your voice heard is to hop into the Kylin official chat, where our ambassadors are watching every single message. And Sam and I are just a message away from a couple dozen people in this community. So it's something where we're looking forward to working together, because it will take the collective power of us to build fast enough for the countless applications and networks that need these services. And we believe with the 58,000 plus in our community, we're going to be able to make some magic happen. So thank you so much, everybody, for coming. And well, until next time, bye for now, y'all.
Hi guys, thanks for hosting this, and thanks for this amazing AMA. I really enjoyed the demo. I think we got some great answers here. Wish you guys all a good weekend. Stay safe, and look forward to the next one. Talk to you all later.
Thank you, Sam.
Thanks for sticking with us, Thank you. Perfect outro.
Have a great one, guys. Thanks a lot for
Have a good one, man.
All right.
Stay safe. Bye-bye. Enjoy the weekend, guys. Bye all.